And I'd like to call the February 5th, 2026 Planning Board meeting to order. We have the following board members with us today: Vice Chair Giraldo,
Good morning, everybody.
Commissioner Okoye,
Morning, everybody.
and I am Chairman Barnes. We will move forward with the business at hand. Please note that the deadline for all participation, pre-registration, and for all submission of materials and exhibits was 12 noon on Tuesday before the Planning Board meeting. Please note that walk-in speaking sign up is no longer permitted. Now we will move on with today's agenda. The order of cases for today's meetings are as follows: item 2, 3, 5, and 6. The first item on the agenda is item 2, draft minutes of January 29th, 2026. We look for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move approval of the minutes of the January 29th Planning Board meeting.
Second, Mr. Chairman.
It's been properly moved and second. I will now call the roll. Vice Chair Giraldo,
I vote aye.
Commissioner Okoye,
I vote aye.
and I vote aye as well. The next item on the agenda is item 3A, legislative updates. Ms. Borden and Ms. Balcom Colbert.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. This is Deborah Borden. I'm the General Counsel for the Park and Planning Commission, and we have a few bill updates for you, some of which you've already seen. So we're just bringing it back as we refine our comments. For the housing bills, we have had the opportunity to meet with DHCD. That was a very productive meeting. Both of our planning directors attended that meeting. We talked about all of the housing bills, but particularly the Starter and Silver Homes Act, which is on your screen right now. We have some refinements to our comments that were a result of that meeting. I believe there was also another meeting with the members of the County Council about this bill, and they have requested some language that would basically have it so that if a county meets the average number of the county's housing units approved over a rolling 3-year period, the number of the annual housing units needed, that they would be exempt from basically everything in the act, in the bill. The problem that we see with that, and I'll let James talk about that a bit more because he was involved in that conversation. The problem is if the bill is requiring certain adjustments to the zoning ordinance, it's not clear how we would do that on a 3-year rolling basis. So if, on a 3-year rolling basis, you meet these standards or these housing numbers, but then you fail to meet them, then are you going to have to redo your zoning ordinance every time you fail to meet them? It's not clear how practically this would work. So what we would do is we would ask you to, allow us to work that through and see if we can come up with a solution that would actually work in terms of giving some recognition to the counties that have a lot of residential, like Prince George's. I think that's where they're going with this. They want some recognition of the fact that all of the counties are not in the same boat when it comes to the amount of residential that they have just to begin with. So we want to be able to look at that and work through that and maybe come up with something that would work, that wouldn't require us to keep having to go back into the zoning ordinance. So I'll stop there and see if James wants to add some comments to that.
For the record, James Hunt, Acting Planning Director. General Counsel is absolutely correct here. We're in support with the county's amended comments. However, we want to better coordinate. As you know, as a commission, we have to do this from a bi-county standpoint. And so we realize that there are some comments here that may be impactful. And so we want to coordinate with the Montgomery County side as well. However, in particular here, it does involve more so carving out for Prince George's. It sounds like we're meeting a lot of the housing as far as the approved permits, I should say approved, not permits, but the approvals here under the entitlement process. So we want to be able to coordinate better on that side of what that looks like. We've realized that, and I think there were 2 other jurisdictions in the state of Maryland that are doing the same. And so that's the intent here, is to kind of look at this point in time and see how we can kind of craft the language appropriately where it addresses the concerns of the county, in addition to all the other elements that we've already discussed previously in the prior planning board meetings relevant to the developments all over the county, as well as we do have a comment in there related to a lot of the zoning procedures that are in there and how it's going to impact Prince George's County and what we're doing here. So we want to be able to effectively address those areas as well. And I think that we're all in lockstep on that portion of it, but it's really this one amendment that the county is looking towards. And so we want to kind of work with them along with our colleagues in Montgomery County on this as well.
So what we would need is just a motion that would give us the latitude to, work with these stakeholders to see if we can come up with something that would satisfy that goal. Because we understand what the goal is. We agree with the goal. Let's figure out a way to get it done.
Yeah, I would ensure that you have the latitude to be successful and do your job. But also understanding that the needs are different in Montgomery County and Prince George's County. And what we're trying to get accomplished in Prince George's County may not be the same within Montgomery County. And after having conversations with the chairwoman of Prince George's County and the vice chair and other members of their delegation, I am on the same page as far as their recommended amendment. I do believe that there are some things that we still need to flush out. I know that James and I are meeting with the governor's housing people on tomorrow, along with Jordan, to make sure that we can at least hear from them on the recommendation or what they've heard from the county and how we move forward. Are there any other questions?
I have none.
Seeing none, you can move to the next one.
We just need a
We need to
motion.
vote.
I think we need a
Yeah,
motion.
Could we have a vote, please? That would be really helpful, and then we can move forward. We can always bring back any additional issues that arise, but we think we can work this through with all of the stakeholders.
This is support with amendments.
So what are you asking?
We're asking that we are able to go forward with support with amendments and instructions to work with the stakeholders on this particular request from the county.
So when you talk about support with amendments, what amendments are we talking about?
They are you should have received drafts of the position statements. We don't post them because they're drafts and they can change. But you should have received in your inbox a draft of the position statements that include the recommendations specifically to the bill.
Yeah, because some of the recommendations from the county, they felt that was not needed. I believe that there were a couple of bullet points from the county that they felt were on point, along with their recommendation.
Are we able to get a vote if we need to make changes to support the bill with amendments and then have the board review, final recommendations afterwards? The bill hearing is coming up, so I wanted to get something on record. So are we able to still do that and encompass what the chairman is asking?
Yeah, I don't know yet. I need to make sure that we're all on the same page on what we're asking. So, James, you want to go over the bullet points that the county recommended, or where are we with these?
It was 1 and 3, James. So I believe that's what I wrote in my notes for consideration of the definitions. And then the other one is the third one I wrote, I believe.
I think one of them was related to the land use authority and zoning authority more so. And the other one I can't recall right off. I don't have it in front of me. Mr. Chair, if it pleases the board, I can go ahead and pull that information. If we can table this for now and come back, that works.
Yeah, let's table this and come back to after you go over the next one.
Mr. Chair, just
Okay.
one thing with regards to the position statement. And I know this is just internal, but can the position statement, position be spelled correctly?
Oh,
I'm
there's a
looking-
typo. Okay, we'll take care of
Yeah.
any typos. Sorry about that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we'll go on to the next one. This is what we affectionately call the TOD bill. So this bill provides additional incentive, shall we say, or some people would call it preemption, to require the easing of certain development standards and provide for additional strategic funding for projects involving residential around transit-oriented facilities, infrastructure. So transit generally means rail. We have some suggestions for this bill. We are suggesting, for instance, that they adjust the definition to include bus rapid transit so that we can include, some of the
Ms.
new.
Borden,
Yes.
I hate to stop you, but I need to pause it. We're having some issues with our live stream. So if you can give
Okay.
me a few seconds.
Okay.
We good, Ryan?
Yeah, okay. Time is now 10:46. I'd like to call the meeting back to order and bring back Ms. Borden, Deborah Borden.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think we were on the TOD bill,
That's correct.
Jordan. Yes, thank you. Okay, so let's see. Let me just pull up my cheat sheet so that I know what I'm talking about. Okay, so this bill it is SB 389. And just a quick recap, this bill would expand the state's role in TOD, that's transit-oriented development. It would automatically grant certain TOD areas enterprise zone status. Sorry, do you need me to stop?
Ma'am.
Okay. It would automatically grant certain TOD areas with enterprise zone status, shift some local land use authority, and also delays certain development fees. So I can just look at the bill here and just hit the highlights. So of course, the focus is on residential around transit-oriented infrastructure. The bill talks about rail transit stations. That's one of the things we think they should define, or at least refer back to a definition someplace else in the code or in the regulations, so that we all know what we're talking about. We have a lot of different transit that are available throughout the state. We have BRT, bus rapid transit. We have light rail. We have commuter transit, the MARC stations. So, and they all have sort of different impacts, different schedules, and different ways of interacting with our development that's close to those stations. So we think they should include either a specific definition for this bill or a reference back to another definition. That would be very helpful. It would also be helpful if they could talk about how they want that distance from the rail station to be measured, because as we know, we're the boots on the ground. We have to use the same measurements. Are we measuring from the platform? Are we measuring from a radius around the station? That really matters, and it makes a difference in terms of actually knowing which areas are in and which areas are out of the zones that they're talking about. So we have some other particular comments. Let's see, other than just the definitions. We are asking them to look at, again, how they're talking about this, because they've said that the rail station they're talking about has to provide an hourly service on average from 8 a.m. until 6 p.m. Well, that may leave some stations out, particularly MARC stations. And we're not quite sure whether they're trying to include the bus rapid transit that is in the pipeline. So the Southern Maryland Rapid Transit Corridor that goes through Charles and into Prince George's, that's on the plans. That's, you know, on the drawing board. It's not in existence yet. Same thing with the Red Line in the city of Baltimore. You know, these are BRTs, so they function similarly to light rail, but with buses. And they should consider maybe using a different phrase, like maybe high capacity transit or transit that partially or completely operates on a fixed guideway, to encompass these other potential as well as existing BRT systems. Let's see, the other major thing we want them to consider, again, broader definitions that could encompass areas around the University of Maryland, College Park, but may not abut a MARC station or a Metro station or a Purple Line station. Let's see. The other things there, this bill is trying to do, it talks about the elimination of minimum parking within a quarter mile of these stations. Again, how they define the station really makes a difference, and how you measure makes a difference in terms of how much of the property near these stations would be affected by that. They're also not really talking about a very expansive mixed use definition. One of the requirements of the bill would require that no matter what the zone is around quarter mile to a half a mile around the station, that if someone wants to do a mixed use development, that they should be allowed to do that. But the mix of uses that they seem to be referring to, because they're referring back to a particular section of the code, only includes residential mix of uses. Well, you know, mixed use in general parlance for planners also means non-residential mix of uses, office and dining, or office and retail. And we're not really quite sure why they would leave that out. It creates a bit of an inconsistency and an unevenness that we think that they need to look at. So I will stop there and see if James wants to add anything, or his planners want to add anything to that, since I am not a planner.
Right, for the record, James Hunt with the planning department. Yeah, I don't have much to add. The intent is to really focus on more TOD developments that we do have. I think the general counsel just hit it spot on here for us. So that's our goal here, and also to kind of specify, you know, dealing with the SMRT that we have that's in the pipeline. We want to have a focus on that as well. So, and the Purple Line and all those other potential transportation improvement projects that we do know that are very near and dear to Prince George's County at this point in time. But we want to make sure that all those factors here are addressed as a part of the bill.
Thank you. And I think, Ms. Borden, the county council is on the same page as far as your thinking, and aligns with our methodology as we approach Senate Bill 389. So I really like the information provided, and I know that Director Hunt is on top of this particular issue as well. Are there any questions for Ms. Borden?
No questions.
If not, Ms. Borden, I'd like to go back to Senate Bill 36, the Land Use Zoning and Limitation Bill, which is the Starter and Silver Homes Act of 2026. Mr. Hunt.
Yes, sir. What we wanted to kind of go back to and make sure we're very clarified here on the record is that there are specific definitions that we're asking to be identified as well as according with the bill. So we're going to be looking and working with them on those specific definitions to provide further clarity. So we're going to look at that. In particular, I know it was mentioned previously regarding those bullets, in particular bullets 1 and 3. And I'm going to kind of go ahead and read that into the record real quick so it's very clear to the board and to everyone that's here and online. So the first bullet was ensuring that we consider alternative definitions to locations subject to the minimum lot size. In an effort to focus growth proximity to existing infrastructure and transit access, we recommend considering and applying this legislation to priority funding areas or residential zones within a designated distance from existing and or planned within the next 5 years transit stations. So again, that kind of goes back to our focus of where we want development to take place near those transit stations, that increased density there as well. In addition to that third bullet point that we were talking about was to preserve local authority to manage growth in a manner consistent with adopted master plans. So we do realize that our citizens, the department, the council, everyone has spent a lot of time and effort and money, obviously, when it comes to developing these plans. We don't want them to sit on the shelf. They've got to get implemented. So in order to do that, we want to make sure that, that they are allowing us to preserve that local authority to be able to address those matters as it relates to our master plans that we do have. So we'll make sure that comment is addressed in there as well. So those are the main ones, the main items in there. In addition to the fact, the last one is we talked about the amendment that we want to kind of make sure is addressed as well. So one of the things is an exemption when it comes to the application of this ordinance or this bill. And in there, we're requesting to add in there as an amendment, a county that meets or an existing exemption, I should say, a county that meets the following standard, which is the average number of the county's housing units approved over a rolling 3-year period exceeds the number of the annual housing units needed based on annual housing data from the county's planning department. So what that does is pretty much coming back to say that any jurisdiction that is meeting those needs, we want to be able to kind of carve them out in that area. So we're looking, that's the amendment that's in there. There, like I said earlier, there are, I think, 2 other jurisdictions that may be applicable to at this point in time. But, when it comes to Prince George's County, we are doing all we can right now to meet those goals, those needs. We are one of the jurisdictions in the area that has probably the most affordable housing that's out there. So we want to be able to kind of keep that effort up. And, from an entitlement standpoint, there's a lot of cases that are being approved that address those housing units, and we want to be able to make sure that's addressed in this relates to this bill itself. So that is the intent of adding that amendment in there for CB. I'm sorry, I shouldn't say CB. Sorry, State Bill is 36 here.
Are there any questions for Mr. Hunt? If not, is there a motion to approve the recommended position along with adding in the amendment from the county?
Mr. Chair, I move that we support SB 36 with the amendments as read into the record by Mr. Hunt, our planning director.
Second that, Mr. Chairman.
It's been properly moved and second. I will now call the roll. Vice Chair Giraldo,
I vote aye.
Commissioner Okoye,
Aye.
and Ms. Borden, I vote aye as well.
Thank you. Can we also have a vote on the TOD comments, Bill 389?
I was just getting ready to until I got a note passed to me.
Oops.
Is there a motion to move forward with Senate Bill 389?
Mr. Chair, I move that the planning board approve or support Senate Bill 389 with the amendments and comments provided by council.
Second that, Mr. Chairman.
It's been properly moved and second. I will now call the roll. Vice Chair Giraldo,
Vote aye.
Commissioner Okoye,
Aye.
and I vote aye as well. You may proceed.
Okay, what's next, Jordan? Oh, Senate Bill 325. Let me just go to my little cheat sheet. Okay, this bill would grant applicants of an approved housing development project certain rights related to use and development of their projects, also prohibits the collection of certain development excise taxes and impact fees before the development is completed. And also it affects the time of submission and it attempts to get at the application review process. So before an application is actually accepted. So again, these bills all have one theme. They are attempting to create a climate that makes it easy to build residential housing. I mean, that's really the point of really all of these housing related bills. So this bill is mostly talking about process. And I will go to the bill. Let me see here. Sorry, it's helpful if I can review the sort of the highlights of the bill first. So the bill starts out with some definitions, including a definition of substantially complete application. So we have made some suggestions for that definition because that's really important. Right now, the definition means a housing development project application that satisfies a substantial majority of the application requirements, but may contain non-substantive errors. Well, so one concern we have with that definition is that it says that satisfies a substantial majority. Well, what is a substantial majority? Is that going to be a bone of contention that we're going to be arguing with applicants about? We don't want that. We want clarity as much as we can. So we have made some suggestions to clarify that. Also, that may contains non-substantive errors. What does may mean? May generally means may or may not. And so obviously we don't want to accept applications that contain substantive errors, substantive omissions, that omit really necessary documentation, because we don't ask for that documentation because we're trying to be onerous. We ask for it because we need it in order to satisfy the requirements that are in the code, and the requirements are quite substantial in our zoning code as well as our subdivision regulations. So we want to make sure that we get the information and the materials that we need to do a thorough review of each application, because if we don't, then that just delays the process. That is counterproductive if we don't receive the information that we need. So we have some clarifications for the sponsor, and we hope to work really closely with the sponsor to make sure that these clarifications are reflected. So basically, our comments are that the sponsor consider 20 days for initial application determination of completeness. Right now, the bill says 15 days. We do think that since these are calendar days, 20 days is much more reasonable to have as a statewide minimum, and 30 days before it's deemed complete. So the catch is if the local authority doesn't complete its initial application determination of completeness within 20 days, but beyond 30 days, the application would be deemed complete, and it just goes forward into the review process. But again, we want to specify that just because it goes forward into the review process, that doesn't mean that required documentation is suddenly not required anymore. It's still required, because you still can't make certain determinations unless you have the information to make them. So we want to clarify that. Other comments have to do with providing flexibility so that local timelines that are more stringent or already meet those requirements are allowed to continue and remain intact. That may actually apply in Prince George's County, because we have very tight timelines for application determination as well as review times. Eliminate the use of the term vesting in the bill. We're trying to avoid constitutional and other legal issues. Vesting is a very specific concept in the law, and we think they can describe what they're trying to do without using that term. And we've given them some suggested language for that. And we've also suggested that they extend the effective date of the bill to July 1, 2027, due to the need to update zoning ordinances and development processes. We have an election year moratorium coming up, and so we are suggesting additional time. So I'll stop there and see if you have any questions.
Ms. Borden, thank you. The question I have is, are you asking that we support with the amendments that you just set forth?
Yes.
Okay. Nothing further.
Ms. Hind, any questions from you?
Nothing from my side. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Commissioner Okoye,
No question.
is there a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move that we support Senate Bill 325 with the amendments read into the record by Ms. Borden.
I second that, Mr. Chairman.
Been properly moved and second. I will now call the roll. Vice Chair Giraldo,
Vote aye.
Commissioner Okoye.
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. You may proceed.
Okay, so this one is a little different. House Bill 243, Land Use and Comprehensive and General Plan. So this was the 50-page bill that talked about the elements that go into a general plan and a master plan. And since we had so many questions and sort of, we were puzzled about this because it seemed like they were really rewriting how we do master plans. We reached out to the Department of Planning and we had a meeting with them. Unfortunately, it happened last night. Well, yesterday afternoon, late. So we had a really good meeting with them. We understand that this is part of a larger process that they've been going through to try to update our planning processes in the state. And these changes were really mostly non-substantive. I mean, they were positioning certain things. Certain things are new, like the climate change and resiliency and sustainability, but most of the items were really either just restatements of existing elements and reworking what the state is looking for. So, and the duplication that we identified was really that, one of the sections only applies to municipalities and the other section applies to charter counties, et cetera. So I think we have resolved a lot of our comments that we had initially. I think the one comment that we still want to transmit to them is the comment about the churches. They have put language in there saying that we should plan for where churches should go. And we don't think that's really appropriate. There's a federal law that says that churches have sort of a special place when it comes to land use. Churches can pretty much almost go anywhere. And you have to have a really good reason why you would deny a church to go in a certain place. So we're going to, continue with that comment, but we think that we've really come to an understanding of what the Department of Planning is trying to do. So that's really the only comment that we would like to put forward. And I'll stop there, and I'll also ask James if he has any comments about it, because I do think James was on the call.
Yes, during the call, one of the biggest things is we wanted to make sure also to add into what Ms. General Counsel Borden was talking about, is ensuring that the Department of Planning is brought in earlier on when it comes to the master plan process and comp planning process. Because they have a lot of insight. And so a lot of the jurisdictions from around the state felt like it was really important to bring them on earlier rather than later on in the process. So they were amenable to that, obviously, as well. As we proceed down this road, is what we're talking about earlier, that phased approach to implementing. Our department will be at the table moving forward. We're going to be coordinating that. I think if I recall correctly, they're going to be having quarterly meetings in different locations. And the Prince George's Planning Department will be committed to be in attendance at those meetings to ensure that our voices are heard and the intent of our plans are implemented and heard as a part of that process as well. We're going to be coordinating, obviously, with our colleagues in Montgomery, but more so, of course, have that focus on Prince George's right now.
Are there any other questions? Seeing none, is there a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve House Bill 243 with the comments that General Counsel Borden read into the record.
I second that, Mr. Chairman.
It's been properly moved and second. I will now call the roll. Vice Chair Giraldo,
Vote aye.
Commissioner Okoye,
I don't vote aye.
and I vote aye as well. Ms. Borden?
Thank you. And I think we have one more. Sorry, there's so many. Okay, so we have House Bill 381. This is mercifully short. This bill would, where is it? It would require SHA, State Highway Administration, to install traffic control devices prohibiting a vehicle from making a right turn while facing a steady red signal at certain intersections on state highways in urban cores and urban centers. Now, urban cores and centers are actually defined in SHA's regulations. And so this is a indication of really a nationwide push to prohibit right turns on red in, in congested areas in order to deal with pedestrian fatalities, pedestrian accidents. We have statewide as well as local efforts to reduce pedestrian fatalities. And this is yet another step in that direction. Our transportation planners have looked at this and they have, indicated that these studies have found that this type of traffic control does reduce collisions and does improve safety for pedestrians and bicyclists as well. So we think this is a good idea. We think that they should, however, consider a reporting requirement for when SHA decides that, that they're not going to install a no turn on red. We think they should have to document that and document the rationale for not advancing that. So I'll stop there and see if you have any questions.
Mr. Chair, I have a question. So how do they define the congested area? And are they directing it towards just an urban area, or would it, for example, and what I'm thinking of specifically is that would probably really be good for something like Highway 210 in Prince George's County, which is one of the most dangerous highways in the region. And I've noticed, and it's anecdotal, but a lot of the accidents that happen on 210 are a result of a vehicle making a right turn on red, and you have vehicles on 210 traveling at 70, 75 miles an hour. So I was wondering whether or not that would apply.
I am not sure because I'm not a transportation planner. I will defer to James or his staff to talk about how SHA defines that. But it's an SHA determination, and they, in their manual, have how they define urban centers and urban cores. James?
My apologies, this mic is having issues over here. But yes, I believe it's primarily focused on those urban core areas and also those corridors too. So what we'll do to confirm that we can kind of make sure the transportation team's involved, of course, continue to be involved as part of that process. But as it relates to what my interpretation is, it would be primarily focused on a lot of the urban areas in addition to those major corridors, like 210, for example, as well.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions?
No.
Seeing none, is there a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move that we support HB 381 with any modifications as set forth into the record by our counsel and Mr. Hunt.
Mr. Chair, I second that motion.
It's been properly moved in second. I will now call the roll. Vice Chair Giraldo,
Vote aye.
Commissioner Okoye,
Aye.
and I vote aye as well. And I need one motion for the overall presentation by Ms. Borden today on the legislative updates. Is there a motion?
I move approval.
I second approval.
Been properly moved in second. I now call the roll. Vice Chair Giraldo,
Vote aye.
Commissioner Okoye. I vote aye as well. Thank you so much, Ms. Borden and Ms. Colbert.
Thank you.
The next
Thank
item on
you.
the
Bye-bye.
agenda is item in 3C, corporate budget overview, FY 26 budget adjustment for the planning department. We will now hear from staff. Ms. Charles. I'm sorry.
Good morning. Oops. Good morning. Again, for the record, Terry Bacote Charles, corporate. I'm before you to ask for your consideration and approval of 2 budget adjustments on behalf of the Planning Department. These requested transfers are needed to support effective operations for the remainder of FY 26. The first request involves reallocating $165,000 in available special revenue funds to the non-capital program Historic Preservation. As you likely recall from the FY 27 budget work session discussions, this program has been experiencing an increase in demand, and as such, you approved for FY 27 an increase in their program budget to $200,000. Well, in the current year, the Historic Preservation Commission has awarded a grant that exceeds the current budget. And furthermore, they anticipate additional grant activity to occur before the end of the fiscal year. Hence, your approval is sought today to be able to maintain the program's current year operations, and the program manager is available to answer any additional questions if needed. The second request in front of you is a realignment of $1,310,000 in non-personnel operational funds with a net impact of 0 to the department's total operating budget. With this request, the department will be able to support the various divisions' operational needs, again, for the remainder of the year. And quite simply, the department has done a review of their budget lines, and this request involves reallocating professional service funds from countywide planning and putting those funds throughout the planning department's other divisions to support, again, effective operations for the remainder of the fiscal year. So again, your approval is sought to support both of those budget transfers.
Are there any questions for Ms. Charles?
I have none, Mr. Chair.
None.
Is there a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move that we, the board approve the budget transfers as set forth by Ms. Charles.
Second that, Mr. Chair.
It's been properly moved in second. I will now call the roll. Vice Chair Giraldo,
Vote aye.
Commissioner Okoye,
Vote aye.
and I vote aye as well. Thank you so much. The next item on the agenda is item 3D, Office of the Planning Director, initiation of formal written zoning ordinance interpretation, transitional provision, section 27-1700. We will now hear from Mr. Hunt.
Good morning, everyone. For the record, again, James Hunt, Planning Director. We typically don't have a lot of this, of course, that has happened in the past, but I want to kind of give you everyone a little background. As identified within the zoning ordinance and the subdivision regulations, the Planning Department regularly interprets the associated provisions governing access to the prior zoning ordinance as well as the subdivision regulations. And associated with that, we also look at the provisions that apply to the various development applications as well as the permit approvals that take place as well. In accordance with section 273612 of the zoning ordinance, as well as section 243407 of the subdivision regulations, an application for a formal written interpretation may be initiated by the district council, the planning board, or any person having a contractual interest in land in the county. And given the number of requests and the importance of such interpretations to the development process in the county, we're requesting the planning board initiate a formal zoning ordinance interpretation concerning the applicability of sections 27 through 1700 through 27-1707 of the zoning ordinance, otherwise known as the transitional provisions. Formal zoning ordinance interpretations are issued by the planning director and are binding on subsequent decisions by the planning director or other park and planning or county administrative officials. So in addition to that, there's the appeals process for a zoning ordinance interpretation is done by the Board of Appeals, and an appeal for the subdivision regulations, those interpretations, I should say, is done by the Planning Board. With this information, we would respectfully request the Planning Board request an initiation of the transitional provisions so we can provide a better interpretation of those provisions as well.
Are there any questions for Mr. Hunt?
I have none.
Just a quick check. Is this just the zoning ordinance transition provisions or also the subdivision regulations transition provision?
It will incorporate both the subdivision as well as zoning ordinance as
So
well.
the motion is going to need to request both the subdivision regulations interpretation and a zone interpretation, and it would cover both zoning ordinance 27-1707, 1700 through 1707, and the 1700 of the subdivision regulations. So that's just to clarify.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I move that we initiate a formal zoning ordinance interpretation concerning the applicability of sections 27-1700 through 27-1707 of the zoning ordinance, otherwise known as the transitional provisions.
Second that, Mr. Chair.
And subdivision as well,
Tack on also a subdivision.
subdivision.
I second that. You want to put it in the record?
Did you add the subdivision?
Yes, I added subdivision.
Oh, I second that, adding the subdivision.
It's been properly moved in second. I will now call the roll. Vice Chair Giraldo,
Vote aye.
Commissioner Okoye,
Would I?
and I vote aye as well. Thank you so much. We will now move on to the regular agenda items. The first item on the agenda is item number 5, Countywide Planning Division briefing on draft environmental technical manual rewrite. We will now hear from staff.
Laura,
Morning.
Laura, you want to sit? Want to share? Yes, thank you. Good morning, Chair Barnes, members of the Planning Board. For the record, my name is Tom Burke, Acting Division Chief with the Countywide Planning Division. We are excited to bring before you today the draft environmental technical manual. A team of planning department staff led by Mark Juba with the environmental planning section have been working vigorously with our consultant, CH Planning, whose president, Charnel Hicks, is with us this morning. I'll refrain from saying too much about this because I think the presentation speaks for itself, but I would like to introduce Ms. Hicks, who will introduce herself and our esteemed producer. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having us today. I'm Charnel Hicks, president of CH Planning. It's been a pleasure working with your incredible team over the past 18 months on this effort. And I just want to introduce Laura Connolly, our project manager. Thank you for having us today.
Thank you, Ms. Hicks, for coming in today. As I've told staff on a number of occasions, there's 2 things that I'm most passionate about, and that is, one is diversity, and the second one is community engagement. So to have you here representing your company on this important issue as we start to talk about the environmental needs within this county and seeing the representation by you brings me joy. So keep up the great work, and I look forward to hearing the presentation.
Thanks again for having us.
Thank you very much, Chair Barnes, Vice Chair, members of the Planning Board. I'm here today. My name is Laura Conley. I'm a professional landscape architect with experience in all aspects of the land development process. I'm representing CH Planning Limited, and we have a very brief presentation on the update for you. Next slide, please. This is our agenda for today. We're going to do some quick introductions. We're going to talk about what is the technical manual. We have 2 slides that say number 3 and number 4. They look very similar, but the first one, changes and updates, I'm going to tell you why we're making the changes. The second one is going to be what is actually changing or how the manual is being updated. and then we're going to talk about the schedule. We'll do a summary, some key takeaways, and if you have any questions or would like to have a discussion, we'll finish up with that. Next slide, please. Introductions, next slide. Tom, I'm going to let you introduce your team, if that's okay.
Absolutely. I can't really read that, but I'll, oh, there we go. Thank you. Yeah, so the manual rewrite team, as I indicated previously, is led by Mark Juba, a planner with the environmental planning section. Also on the team, Marion Honnessy, Maureen Farrington, Kim Finch, Megan Reiser, Chad Williams, Carly Brockington was our on-the-spot publications staff who we would bring things to her last second and she would turn them around in an instant. Also, Delisa Coleman with our legal team, Suzanne Nickel, and then I wouldn't say I was part of the team so much, but I participated. So thank you.
And the CH planning team, of course, led by Charnel Hicks. I'm Laura Conley. We also have Jimena Larson, and Fabiana Paez is helping us with our graphics. And next slide, please. Something happened there. Can we go to the next slide? So what is the Environmental Technical Manual? If you're not familiar, it's referred to frequently as the manual. It's kind of a cookbook. It's a recipe for how to put together plans that are essential for the land development process. And these are plans that come, I would say, early in the building portion, where you're trying to determine what is on the land, what should be saved, where should you put development, where should you avoid development, because there may be sensitive environmental features, trees that you want to save, streams that you want to protect, important habitats. This manual is available and used by developers, planners, environmentalists, the public. So it serves a wide variety of people, and it's pretty much a how-to prepare these plans. What features are we looking for in a priority order? Next slide, please. Again, okay, so the goals of this manual are to provide guidance or the instructions necessary, the environmental documents and plans for land development projects. It gives guidance on what to protect, how to protect it. There may be specific features such as using tree protection fencing, maybe root pruning, and then it also gives a framework or provides a working template to navigate the environmental rules. As we were listening to Deborah Borden just moments ago talk about Bill 325, she talked about very specific things in the zoning ordinance, the subdivision ordinance.
If I can hold you up, we need to take a quick 3-minute recess.
No problem.
To catch up to speed
and make
sure that it cites all the correct zones and then has the correct conservation thresholds to match with that. Deborah had also talked about the subdivision ordinance, and there have been recent updates and changes to the subdivision ordinance. They require specific information. These tree conservation plans mirror that, mirror the code, require very specific information from the applicant. So as those portions of the county code update, so must the technical manual. The actions that are being taken are some of the other reasons why the manual is being updated. There's new technology today. In 2018, we were on the iPhone 7. Now we're up to the iPhone 17. So just technology continues to evolve. You used to take paper blueprints down to the planning department, and then a Mylar would come down and you'd sign it. Today, with everything, you push a button from your desk, from your living room, and submit your plans to the planning department through their portal. So those changes also are reflected in the manual. There is new technology where There are apps now that can do what you could not do in 2018. I also want to mention just the general structure of park and planning is changing. There are new sections, new divisions, new names, the same throughout county government, throughout the state government. So those are going to be updated as well. And to mention the state government, the Forest Conservation Act recently went through a revision. Those revisions must be reflected locally, and that impacts the technical manual. The final result is recently in Prince George's County, there were 3 council bills in 2024 that were passed and 1 in 2025, all impacting the tree and vegetation section, subsection 25 of the county code. Those sections have been substantially updated, so the technical manual must follow suit. Next slide, please. Specific updates. How is the manual changing? There are new definitions. There is a new category of tree conservation plan called the modified exemption. We also are adding sections regarding grandfathering, bonding, and then we're going to update replacement requirements for clearing, protection, and planting. And then the old manual did have sections that talked about tree banking, timber harvesting. Those sections are going to come out of the manual and those will be put on the web page. So they will no longer, they don't apply to a vast majority of the permit applications that come in. So they're going to kind of pull them out and put them on the side. Next slide, please. Next slide. The current manual, there are parts A through E. Part A speaks to the preparation of the natural resources inventory. This is kind of going out to the site, looking around, understanding what is there, what's worth keeping. Is there a particularly nice tree? Is there a change in use where there is residential on this side and we're building mixed use? So you want to keep a buffer. You want to understand how your land lays out and what makes the most sense so that everyone benefits. Part B talks specifically about preparing type 1 tree conservation plans and type 2 plans. If you're not familiar, a type 1 is more conceptual. It gets submitted with preliminary plans, concept designs. The type 2 is very specific. This is the trees. These are the trees that we're going to save. This is the habitat we're going to protect, and this is how we do it. They are more tied to your grading plans. Part C deals with the tree canopy coverage. Part D is going to be also tree canopy coverage, and then Part E is the Chesapeake Bay critical area. Next slide, please. We are updating, we had talked about that to reflect the legislation changes, both at the state level and at the local level. And then the last way that we wanted to update the manual, we thought it would be great if we could streamline it, put it in a format that is much easier to read, more scannable, and almost more bulleted points throughout the document. Next slide. Updates specifically to Part A. We changed the content of Part A. It used to be the old manual that was the substantial bulk of the manual. Now, the natural resource inventory was added in 2018. That was Part B. Because that's the first step in the tree conservation process. We've taken it out of Part B and moved it to Part A. So it's just kind of a juggling the chapters there and then updating the information that goes with it. The required documents and submittal requirements, those are changing. Those are also tied to zoning subdivision ordinance. So those have to get updated. There's also going to be most everything available on the web and available to submit via a portal. And then the data requirements and plan rendering. talking about how plans are put together. There's very specific, precise ways. And these plans often serve as the base or the template for the rest of the land development process, whether it's stormwater management, your building plans, your layout plans. So if things are standardized in the very beginning, as other reviewers look at the documents, everything is the same. Everything is consistent. Nobody has to learn new symbols, new locations. If you always put the plan approval block in the lower right-hand corner, everybody knows that's where you look for it. You know, when you have a 10-page plan set, it's easier if everything is standardized. So this document lays that foundation for the whole land development process. And it gets everybody started so that things can be efficient as we move through the many stages of land development. Next section, please. These are the updates in Part B. We've added variances, grandfathering, exemptions, and appeals, updated zoning, conservation thresholds. I talked to you about the changes in the zoning ordinance, improved definitions, fee in lieu, bonding, the plan review, including major and minor revisions. We have that a little more defined to make it easier. And then the new legislation calls for a public notice requirement. So those things are also being added to Part B. Next slide, please. Updates throughout the manual. We talked about the improved format, the comprehension, making forms available online, having standardized plan notes, laying out the graphic standards, the sheet layouts, the illustrations. Those are all each section talking to what the preferred standards are. And then that gets everybody kind of on the same page throughout the plan review process. I also want to say, go ahead, next slide. Okay, the next slide, please. This brings us to the timeline. We started this process back in 2024. We've been at it for about 18 months. We completed the draft in December. We've had many stakeholder meetings in the beginning, and now we just recently had one in January. We are here today to brief the planning board. We will have another stakeholder meeting, and then we hope to complete or finalize the document in very early March. And the next slide. And that brings us to my conclusion. There is a phone number for any member of the audience, anybody who's watching online. If you have general environmental inquiries, you can call the number shown on the screen, the 952-3650. You can also submit comments regarding the manual via email, or you can contact Mr. Burke or Mark Juba, the project manager.
Thank you so much for your presentation. Are there any questions?
I have one, Mr. Chair. One thing that's interested me that I haven't seen here, but I've seen it in Washington, D.C., is when they do developments that they actually fence around the trees to protect the tree and the tree root is there. Is that something that would be here, or?
That has always been part of the tree conservation ordinance. Since the ordinance was passed in 1990, tree conservation fencing is required. If you think about developments around the county, sometimes you see that blaze orange. That is generally tree protection fence. Sometimes when you have very special trees, specimen trees, individual trees that you really want to save, and it's in a very active area, the plans may call for something much more stringent, like a chain link fence. And a lot of times you'll see that around what's called the drip line. And the drip line is if the branches come out where the branches end, that's where the fencing goes around generally.
Thank you. Thanks for the presentation as well.
Ms. Conley, I like your knowledge.
I want to say that, like, I am very impressed with the way this has been going through. And the document has to speak to so many different types of land development that happens in this county. And it's not just home builders, it's roads that come in, it's schools, hospitals. Things with federal funding have different thresholds, have different requirements that you have to look at federally protected invasive species. So this manual has to juggle all that and get it through the pipeline, as expeditiously as possible. And I'm just very impressed with the way Prince George's County is able to manage so many different land development applications, and providing this guidance is very unique also.
Thank you so much. I believe that there is only one that is signed up to testify on this. Mr. Rivera, are you speaking?
No, I'm here to listen. I'll digest this and get back to you, everybody. Thank you.
All right, very good. Being that, are there any other questions? Seeing none, thank you all so much for your presentation. Next item on the agenda is item 6, preliminary plan of subdivision PPS-2024-031 Silver Hill Apartments. My favorite person. It's bad and Deuce.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the board. For the record, my name is Mahsa Vetendus. And before I begin, let me apologize if my voice sounds a bit off. I'm recovering from a cold. Supplemental item number 6 on the agenda is a preliminary plan of subdivision for Silver Hill Apartments, PPS-2024-031. This preliminary plan of subdivision was continued from the January 29, 2026 Planning Board hearing to today, February 5th, 2026. This subdivision proposes one parcel for development of 250 multifamily residential dwelling units. This preliminary plan is associated with an approved certificate of adequacy ADQ-2024-063, which was approved in accordance with the subdivision regulations to ensure that infrastructure necessary to support the proposed development is adequate in accordance with the established level of service standards. As a matter of housekeeping, prior to the noon deadline on February 3rd, 2026, additional items of backup received from the applicant's attorney, Mr. Goldsmith, and from a citizen, Ms. Tawanda Carter, which include a PowerPoint presentation of the project overview from the applicant team, which I believe will be further presented by Mr. Goldsmith. 2 letters of support for the project from the Maryland Department of Housing and Community Development and the Coalition for Smarter Growth. 2 copies of email correspondence by the applicant, along with 2 emails from Ms. Tawanda Carter. The staff has reviewed the additional exhibits and offers no further analysis in addition to what was presented to the Planning Board on January 22nd, 2026. These materials, all the additional exhibits, are provided as additional materials dated February 4th, 2026 for this preliminary plan of subdivision. In conclusion, the subdivision staff recommends that the Planning Board adopt the findings and approve the preliminary plan of subdivision PPS-2024-031 Type 1 Tree Conservation Plan TCP1-2025-0034, as well as the variation request to Section 24-4205 and variance request from Section 25-122B1G, subject to the findings and conditions in the technical staff report. This concludes the staff's presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Are there any questions from the Planning Board?
I have none.
Seeing none, we will now hear from the applicant's attorney, Mr. Goldsmith.
Morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the planning board. My name is Peter Goldsmith with the law firm Mercer Lee and Brewer, here on behalf of the applicants who are the owners of the properties with the addresses 4319, 4315 Silver Hill Road. Our same team is here, and we are all here to answer the board's questions. I believe we're all still sworn in. And again, we are in complete agreement with planning staff. We have no proposed conditions to the staff's recommendations.
Hold up. Let's swear everyone in again, just in case. Just
Happy to swear ourselves back in. Okay.
everyone intending to speak on this matter, including those participating online or telephonically, please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth?
Yes, we do. As the board recalls, this preliminary plan of subdivision case was continued for the team to reach back out to the community and speak to community members. Also, the board had questions regarding how the applicant's team was addressing the community's concerns, and that message was received. We realized that focusing on our project submissions led to reduced attention on community engagement. And we also realized that we could have done a better job organizing the information that we had presented to the board. So we assembled a PowerPoint presentation here for the board today. And in this presentation, we're going to give a quick overview of the project, provide an update on community engagement, conversations that we've had since the last planning board meeting, and then go through item by item about how we're planning to address the community's concerns. And also, I hope to illustrate how this team has spent the last 2 years working on this application and development and making decisions that have been, that I believe have been really thoughtful and tried to keep the community in mind as well. Mr. Flanagan, mind switching to the next slide, please? One more. Just a reminder that this is just an application for a preliminary plan of subdivision, and we're just talking about, at its core, just lot lines. We're talking about consolidating 2 parcels into one. It's not an approval of the use of an apartment complex that's allowed by zoning, and we're not talking about the design or building the buildings. You know, we will return to this planning board for a second public hearing to discuss the architecture, building locations, site layout, parking, playgrounds, lighting, and landscaping, among other things. So I want to first reintroduce this project. The applicants are 3 affordable housing providers that are based in Maryland. The proposal is to construct 200 multifamily units on this site. That is 200 family homes. We are planning to build these homes in 3 buildings and in 2 phases. The owners purchased this property because the site is within a quarter mile of the Suitland Metro Station. It provides access to jobs throughout the DMV. It aligns perfectly with the high-density residential zoning. It's RMF 48, which is residential multifamily 48 dwelling units to the acre. It aligns with the high-density recommendations in the master plan and in the general plan. It utilizes existing county infrastructure and does not add to sprawl in the county, and it aligns with state and county financing programs. Next slide, please. This is a mixed income community that will serve a spectrum of incomes. It is a great place for people who are commuting to work. We did spend time out in Suitland during the National Night Out and ended up to speak to a few of the police officers, and one of the police officers was complaining that he can't afford to live in the communities where he works, and he was really interested in this community and was asking us about. I spent a lot of time with us talking about it and was asking information about it. The project also intertwines units for use aging out of foster care and other units for people who need additional assistance. Next slide, please. The Housing Initiative Partnership, which is based in, has been based in Prince George's County for over 35 years, is providing resident services and including organizing events for residents, providing financial education for the tenants, offering after-school programs and health screenings. I think it's also really important to emphasize that the applicants are long-term owners. They're not building this property and selling it. They are planning to build this and own it. So they have a vested interest in this community around Suitland. Next slide, please. One more, please. Okay, this is a slide that talks about all the major community meetings that we have held. And we do understand that we may have missed the mark with engaging with the community. Now, these major community meetings here are clustered around this time, around the middle of the year last year, for a reason, because that's when that's when the feedback was most helpful for assembling our application. One thing I didn't mention last time when I was here 2 weeks ago is that we did reach out to the county council chair, and she does a tremendous job. This was before the application was accepted. She does a tremendous job representing her constituents in District 7. And I asked if she would be interested to meet us out on the site and walk the community with us, so that way we understood any concerns that she had, and that we might be able to talk about some of the ideas that we were having to address the community's concerns, because we were aware of them back then. And she graciously spent an hour of her time out there walking the sidewalks, walking around the community with us. We were thankful for her time that she did that.
When was this?
This was, the date is up there, it is September 15th, 2025.
Thank you.
Something that also doesn't come out is that when we send our required notices out to the community and post the community, we get phone calls. And I put my phone number is on the sign and it's on all the notices. And I get a number of phone calls. I pick up the phone and I answer. I try to, or if somebody leaves me a message, I try to answer those calls promptly. And that will continue if I get any phone calls or emails. We handed out all of our contact information at all the community meetings, so they have our information and know how to reach me. After the planning board's meeting 2 weeks ago, I wanted to reach back out to the 3 citizens who did sign up to speak, and I was able to connect with all 3 of them. Ms. Pringle, who spoke, I hadn't spoken to her before. I didn't see her on the sign-up sheet, so I picked up the phone and called her, had a very pleasant conversation with her, and reassured her about some of the security measures that the owners are planning to take, because she had some concerns about crime in the neighborhood, and I'll go through those security measures later in this presentation. The owners also wanted an extended invitation to her to meet with her and talk to her and make sure that we understood her concerns. Unfortunately, she declined that invitation, but that the line of communication remains open to her. We made the same, did exchange emails with Ms. Carter too, but Ms. Carter and I have been speaking for over a year. And the owners also offered to meet with her. Unfortunately, she declined that meeting, but we of course are happy to meet with her if she ever changes her mind. We do realize it does take time to build trust in the community. And then I wanted to also speak to Dr. Moss, who is the Board of Education member who represents District 7. I did meet Dr. Moss at the community meeting, one of our pre-application community meetings. I gave him my card so that way he had my information. And it took a little while to connect with Dr. Moss just because of the school closing. In between here, we had a major snowstorm, but we did end up connecting with him. And this is why we asked for, one of the reasons why we asked for another continuance. I wanted to make sure I spoke with him. Ultimately, he said he didn't have any questions, but he would reach out if he did. And the line of communication remains open with him. Also reached out separately. Well, his email communication with me, he copied Dr. Patrick, who's the head of the Suitland Civic Association, on those communications. But I also reached out to Dr. Patrick separately and let her know that the owners are willing to set up regular meetings with the Suitland Civic Association and also the members on Maywood Lane. We realized that we didn't think anybody from Maywood is actually a member of the Suitland Civic Association. So we offered to set up regular either in-person or virtual meetings with the Suitland Civic Association, and whether we end up doing it with them or we just do it on our own, we're committed to doing that. Also willing to send out emails to the email addresses that I have to provide updates on major milestones of this project and talk about any major changes that may occur in this very long process. Next question, or next question. Next slide, please. The owners are also committed to making this project look really nice. We're going to come and present this architecture to you during the detailed site plan phase, but Architecture by Design is the architect on here, and they're currently working on some really high quality architecture. We really look forward to bringing you this when we return. Also, the owners wanted to make it clear to the community that they are open to hearing their input about any art or any other aspects, some of the other aspects of the community or for site amenities. So we're extending that invitation to them to provide any input about that. Next slide, please. I think it's also important to emphasize that although this has already been approved during the ADQ process, the certification of adequacy of public facilities, the applicants are required to provide off-site improvements, and this includes crosswalks and a new bus shelter, and that's going to make a lot of the multimodal travel around the site a little bit, or in the community, a little bit safer. Next slide, please. Our team was aware that the planning department put on a charrette in the Suitland community on the Suitland Cultural Arts Implementation Strategy. Our site, as you can see on that map, is outside of the strategy area. However, the owners wanted me to reach out to the planning director on their behalf and say that we are willing and very excited to participate in this strategy. So I sent an email to Director Hunt expressing, just letting him know that we would really like to participate in this. And he put us in connection, he connected us with all of your fabulous people in your placemaking, on your placemaking team. My former colleagues over there, I was really excited to talk to them. And so we've exchanged emails with them and look forward to meeting with them on these ideas at the appropriate time. Again, I put this in here 3 times to emphasize that we do understand that that we are committed to holding regular community meetings and making sure that we are keeping the community informed. Next slide, please. One more. I'm going to go through one by one some of the community's concerns, but this slide actually illustrates our decisions before we even started engaging with the community. And initially, we had arranged, and this is something that really should be discussed at the detailed site plan phase. Thank you, Ms. Tallarico, for giving me some leeway here. The original designs of the building, we were actually going to place a building pretty close to the community, but ultimately we decided that was not the right thing to do. Those buildings were 6 stories tall. We pushed the buildings as far away from the existing homes as possible, reduced the height in the buildings to 5 stories, and that cut down the density. We're actually, I think, approximately about 90 units less than the max density that we would be allowed to build on this site. We just thought maxing out the density was inappropriate for the scale of the neighborhood. Next slide, please. We heard from the community about the access from the community, from our site onto Maywood Lane. When we initially started this over 2 years ago, every one of us has been out here and walked Maywood, and we decided, you know what, the right thing to do would be to do our best to try to ask for an access point on the east side of the property. And again, that is controlled by the National Park Service, but we said, you know what, that's the right thing to do. Let's go through, let's try to figure out who we need to talk to over there and make the best effort that we can to see if they would understand that that's probably the best access here. And so we did. We also ended up speaking to our congressman for this area, and he was grateful enough to just send a communication over to the National Park Service just to say, please give this very serious consideration. But ultimately, they denied us access to Summer Road on that side. To the north, SHA denied us access because of how close that would be to the off-ramp onto Summer Road, which is the connection to Suitland Parkway. So that leaves us with the existing stub onto Maywood Lane, and that's ultimately how we came to this decision. Next slide, please. We have heard from the community about all the dangerous movements that occur at that intersection from Maywood Lane onto Silver Hill Road, and this is, and you can see that throughout all of the exhibits that Ms. Carter has submitted to the board, and we have all stood on this corner and watched this. There are movements coming from people coming off of Suitland Parkway, coming off the federal facility to the north, people making illegal U-turns. Sometimes people on Maywood, we have heard, try to make a left-hand turn out of Maywood, crossing 3 lanes, and sometimes that causes a backup in the community for over 10 minutes. So people trying to leave this community might have to wait 10 minutes just to get out because people want to make a left-hand turn. So that leaves us with 3 options. If this community doesn't, if we're not able to proceed, then it's likely that this dangerous condition will remain, because you could see how much effort Ms. Carter tried to fix this issue with SHA, and we don't think that that's really the best option. So next slide, please. Go through that. And so the state highway, well, this shows the intersection with the U-turn sign that Ms. Carter worked really, really hard to get replaced, but people still ignore that. Next slide, please. So SHA gave us 2 options that they will accept. The first is to either put a sign out there that restricts left turns from Maywood Lane during rush hour traffic, but that's not going to eliminate the illegal U-turns. And this is also presuming that people will comply with a sign coming out of Maywood. Next slide, please. So SHA gave a second option, which is to close the median. And that would make all of the dangerous movements impossible, and I think would resolve the issue. And this is the SHA's preferred option. It is also the owner's preferred option because we believe it's the safest option here. And so this is what we're going to pursue. Next slide, please. We also heard that there is a general concern about speeding on Silver Hill Road. Now, I believe Ms. Carter has asked about trying to get a traffic light on Maywood, from Maywood going onto Silver Hill Road, but there's just not sufficient traffic volume to warrant a traffic light on Maywood. And we've been in constant conversations with SHA, MDOT, the state, the Maryland Department of Housing Community Development about addressing the neighbors' concerns, just the general concerns about speeding on Silver Hill Road. Just trying to figure out ways to prioritize our development here. And, they all understand that this is a very complex problem that has existed for decades, and that there could be a possibility of putting a traffic light there, but it would require opening up the connection between Terrace Drive and Maywood. But, like if there's a traffic light there, it would slow traffic. But this I think would be a big wish. I think there's a high likelihood that this is impossible. One, it's completely out of our control. It would require coordination with 4 to 6 private property owners in order to make that connection work. We would need to get agreement and coordinate with the county. We need to coordinate with State Highway. We don't know where the funding would come from in order to do this. Plus, it would be an extraordinary engineering feat, because what you can't really see from that aerial is that Terrace Drive is several feet higher from than Maywood. And I assume maybe that one of the prior developers many years ago just left it the way it was, unfortunately. So this is not really a fix for our particular site, but this, we are willing to go to bat with the community and try to talk to all of these people with the community if the community is interested in this, and explore this opportunity. Next slide, please. We heard from the community that they want us to avoid sending construction traffic down Maywood just because of all the parking on the side of the road. And we understand that concern. So even though the National Park Service denied permanent connection on Summer Road, we're going to reach back out to the National Park Service to apply for a temporary construction permit on Summer Road to see if we can get construction access. It's probably a much higher likelihood than asking for a permanent connection to National Park Road. So we will do that. Next slide, please. We heard complaints about, or worries that our development was going to cause our tenants to start parking, also taking up parking spaces on Maywood Lane. Now, parking is a detailed site plan issue, but we just wanted to address this now because this was a concern of the community. We are planning to install some of the surface parking that we were going to install during phase 2. We're going to do that in phase 1 to make sure that we're providing more parking than is required now. Try to make sure that our residents do not add to the issue on Maywood. Next slide. We heard concerns about just general environmental concerns. This is not exactly a preliminary plan issue, but want to just let the board know that we are planning to, that the owners are planning to construct the buildings with energy efficient materials. This community is going to be all electric and no gas. They're also planning to put solar panels on the roof. We heard complaints from neighbors to the south that there's a lot of stormwater runoff on this site. And if this development is allowed to proceed, we are going to be required to install controlled stormwater management. So we think that that's going to take care of that issue. And also, we are preserving on site the most environmentally sensitive part of the property. Next slide. We heard kind of general concerns about crime and safety. The proposal, I think that you're going to see a detailed site plan, and some of this stuff is actually will be addressed during permitting. We're planning to install a site-tight fence for the most part around the property. We're going to comply with the county's camera laws. We will have controlled building access. You can't get into the building without a key fob. There's going to be criminal and credit background checks for all tenants. All of the lighting around the parking facility and the building are going to be up to current standards. There's going to be a full-time property management on staff, and the owners are committed to working with the neighborhood and police department on a safety plan. Next slide. I put this slide in here twice on purpose, just to let the board know that we did receive the message. We do get it, and we promise to do better. And then we have been doing to provide regular communication with the community. Next slide. So, in closing, this is just a request for approval of a preliminary plan of subdivision, and we do ask your approval just to consolidate these two parcels, approval of the TCP1, approval of the variation for the realignment of the public utility easement, just because we're trying to avoid the conflict with WSSC's easement to the north, and then a tree variance because most of the trees are clustered where our only access is provided. And then we really look forward to returning to you for the detailed site plan to talk about architecture and the site design. Thank you very much for your time, and we're here to answer any questions.
Thank you. Well, let me start off simply by saying thank you. This is the type of presentation that I hope all those that are watching and your colleagues now follow suit. Simply because at the end of the day, it is a matter of ensuring that we are conveying this plan to the community and to get their buy-in and their support of what you all are trying to build within their community. Our job is to make sure that we hear all sides. That way, we make an informed and intelligent decision one way or another. I just come from a world that I believe in community engagement, community outreach, and I believe it's done in a way that it is engaging where folks have input and say on what they want in their own backyards. Your presentation spoke to that today. Your presentation spoke to the fact of, I now understand the idea, the concept, and the direction in which you all are going. That's all I ask. At the end of the day, it may have caused you a little more work, a little bit more effort, but at the end of the day, the results will be more fruitful for what you all want because we all now understand what you're doing. That's all we ask. And I think if you all can articulate those things in a way that it is received by us, then at the end of the day, the outcome will be favorable. And then lastly for us, let me be very clear. We are not here to stop progress, but we are here to demand that the progress is made in a way that everybody understands. And be redundant, but you did a great job of going back, regrouping, and listening to our feedback and putting those things in a way where we better understand them. So for you and your team, I say thank you for your efforts. Thank you for what you all did, because we as the board received those things in a way that we now understand. Are there any other questions for Mr. Goldsmith?
I have none, but I would just say, Mr. Chair, that I share in your comments. And I certainly appreciate the efforts made by the applicant to engage with the community and to listen to their concerns and their interfacing with the National Park Service and the State Highway Authority. And with that, I would, unless Mr. Okaya has.
I just want to seek for clarification. You had pointed to the cost of the connection between the Silver Hill and Melwood. I want to make sure that the cost is not being transferred to the community at some point eventually.
Cost?
Yeah.
Of course not. Or you're talking about the connection?
Connection, yes.
No, I don't. We're exploring what that would be. We're not even.
In your presentation, you said you didn't know where the funding was.
Well, the funding wouldn't become that would not come from the community.
Well, I'm happy to hear that you're going to have solar panels on it and energy efficient homes. So, and then the architectural design, as the chairman will always say, we're looking to see newer and improved architectural design. So is this what you're coming in with?
This is what we're looking at. This is what they're planning to do.
This is it.
This is not, it's going to come, bring it back to you during the detailed site plan. And you'll have a chance to review it. And your planning staff hasn't even had a chance to review it either. But this is just a preview.
Well, thank you. Thank you for the presentation. Like I echo what the chairman said. It's much, much more better now.
Thank you.
Very much.
I believe that there were a couple of people signed up in opposition still, and maybe they were not here because you've had conversations with them. But I wanted to make sure that if they are here, to give them an opportunity to speak. Is Kimberly Pringle here? Saying that. Tawana Carter. And Dr. Moss.
Yes, good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, and who am I speaking with?
This is Ms. Tawanda Carter speaking.
Yes, ma'am. The floor is yours.
Good afternoon.
Yes.
Ms. Carter. Just to verify, earlier you were sworn in when I swore everyone in.
I was sworn in a couple of weeks ago. I wasn't sworn in today.
Let's just rerun that real quick because I did the same for everyone earlier. Ms. Carter, do you swear or affirm to tell the truth?
Yes, I do.
All right, Ms. Carter, you have 2 minutes.
Yes, sir, and thank you all for allowing me this opportunity. I just came out of surgery a few days ago, so I'm kind of visually impaired right now, so I can't go over any of my notes or anything. I did receive correspondence from Mr. Goldsmith a few weeks ago, and I did reply. I actually sent a response to the board because over the year, it's like we have been given the same concerns and really haven't gotten the results that we are looking for, especially as far as Maywood Lane is concerned and having an entry and exit point. I also submitted some pictures last week of the conditions of the road. Even though this was an unusual ice storm, this is still a narrow road, and it always takes days to get this to get it really cleared up, which is still not cleared up. So the amount of residents that we have right now had a hard time navigating up and down this hill. And I think I did mention in one of my correspondences to Mr. Goldsmith to suggest that the developers come around here and see if they can navigate this hill in this weather. So it's more hazards than just us having this traffic issue or whatever it is on Silver Hill Road. This street is just not conducive to hold that type of traffic coming in and out. And then to open up Terrace Drive, coming up into Maywood Lane, it would just create a disaster. We saw cars skidding, sliding into other vehicles during this ice storm, and it's just not a good fit for our neighborhood. And I like for that entry and exit point to really be considered. It keeps coming up every time we have a meeting. It keeps coming up in all these hearings. So us and the residents are just feeling like we are not being heard when it comes to this. And as far as the environment is concerned, we're not concerned about the efficient buildings and all those type of things. We want to protect the environment here, its habitat. We want to protect the trees that surround in this area. And we just ask you all to keep that in consideration for future planning. It still is involving Maywood Lane. And that's why a lot of the residents have said they don't want to talk anymore. They don't want to meet anymore. I said, I don't want to meet anymore because we're just saying the same thing over and over again. So I'd like you to take that in consideration. And thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Ms. Carter. I don't think that Mr. Moss is here. If not, Mr. Goldsmith, your rebuttal.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think we did address at least the access onto Maywood. That is, did our best to try to figure out if there was another access point. That is the only access that is available, and all the dangerous movements on Silver Hill Road, I think, would be taken care of if we do close off that median. And do understand her concerns about the snowstorm. That was an extraordinary snowstorm, and I think the county really had to just take priority or make it a priority for high volume traffic areas, and then kind of reach some of the local neighborhoods a little bit later. I'm in Washington, D.C. It took them several days to even get to my neighborhood. But if this community is ultimately developed, we might be able to put a little more pressure on the county to bring more attention to Maywood Lane. And then regarding, just disturbing this property, people do have the right to develop their own property here. And we are in compliance with, we do have to comply with the Woodland Conservation Ordinance and with all the stormwater management requirements. I think it makes more sense to preserve trees, higher quality forests elsewhere, away from transit-oriented development. And that's what we're doing with this application.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for Mr. Goldsmith? No. Seeing none, is there a motion?
Yes, Mr. Chair, first I'd like to thank Ms. Carter for participating at this hearing. It's always good to have the residents and get their views. And her letters that she sent out earlier did result in the applicant making some changes to address some of the concerns. That being said, I move that we adopt the findings of staff and approve PPS-2024-031, TCP 1 2025-0034, as well as a variation from section 24-4205 and a variance to section 25-122B1G, subject to the conditions as recommended by staff in the technical staff report.
Mr. Chairman, I second that.
It's been properly moved and second. I will now call the roll. Vice Chair Giraldo,
I vote aye.
Commissioner Okoye,
I vote aye.
and Mr. Goldsmith, I vote aye as well. Thank you so much. This concludes all items on today's agenda. I'd like to thank the staff and everyone for coming out today. The time is now 12:26 and the meeting is now adjourned.
Thank you, Commissioner.